All right. Oh, we are live. We are live, everybody. Hey, so thank you so much for those that are able to tune in today. I'm so super excited about this round table discussion we're going to have. Uh, Today, we have Stephanie. I was actually on Stephanie's podcast. Oh gosh, what fall of last year?
November. Yeah.
And just we really vibed and clicked. And when she was telling me what she does, how she wants to empower and love on people, I just knew she had to come back and talk to us. So, Miriam, I'm sure if you've tuned into any of our podcasts and YouTube spotlights, you guys know Miriam, but Miriam is a fellow caregiver of a spouse and sibling. And just so thankful for you ladies to join me today on this discussion. So, without further ado, Miss Stephanie, please introduce yourself.
Well, thank you so much for having me here. I've been looking forward to this ever since we kind of talked about potentially collaborating on something. And I'm just so excited for this conversation. So I specialize in anxiety and empowerment. I'm also an energy healer on the side. So I work a lot with Reiki on balancing the body and kind of tying that into healing anxiety and feeling a little bit more empowered in your life. So been doing this for a few years now, and I specialize, primarily working with female entrepreneurs lately, but all of the things that I work on and that I share and that I use to help heal anxiety can really be attributed to anyone. And I think especially, with the caregiving, that you guys are involved with, there's so much that can be translated to be able to hopefully give a little bit to help out some people in your community here today. So thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. No, Miriam and I always say that we're on a mission to share with the world what caregivers go through, the struggles that come with it. But today I wanted, anybody and everybody to come through and, pick your brain, listen to the triggers, the symptoms, and how to combat anxiety. But I can speak on anxiety pre-caregiving and also during my caregiving journey. So it's very hard to deal with, right? I mean, I'm talking to the expert, but what are some triggers? I mean, I know what triggers me, but what are some triggers and symptoms of anxiety?
Well, what you just said is super important. Is you said, I know what triggers me. And the thing to realize about anxiety is that it is going to be very individual in what your particular triggers are. And so one of the first things that I do in all my programs and working with my clients is identifying, okay, what are your individual triggers? Okay. Because anxiety is birthed through circumstances that we've had in our lives. And it's sort of a collection of, triggers are very often a certain place, a sound, a smell, something that the body has integrated from when we felt a really powerful emotional reaction to something. And so it's so important to figure out what your individual triggers are. And the first step to that is really starting to pay a little more attention to yourself. And with anxiety, it can feel kind of unsafe and freaky to get into your body and pay attention. And I understand that. And so it's step one is even realizing that these are just feelings. It is. Anxiety is going to lie to you, and it's going to try to tell you all of these things about how it's not safe to feel this. You're not going to get through this. I might die from this. It's going to lie to you. And so realizing that it is just a lie, anxiety symptoms are just feelings, and it is safe and okay for you to feel them, will help you navigate through and pay a little more attention to, all right, so what are my individual triggers? And starting to notice that for yourself.
Wow. Yeah, you're dead on. I was just talking to my mom before we went live, and she's cared for her mother and now her father. And I said, Mom, what are some of the things that you noticed, or what were your triggers? Because it's not cookie cutter, which I'm sure my anxiety is going to be different than yours. For her, she just felt like this heaviness. She described it to me just as a heaviness. Like when she would leave the hospital with my grandma, she just said when she would come inside the house, it was just like this heaviness, and she would just lay down by the fireplace and just let the heat warm her and kind of ease that pain. It's just so interesting because there's nothing wrong with it, but how do we get out of that moment, is the hard part.
Absolutely. And, part of moving through it and getting out of that moment is, I love the way that you just described that she had a little bit of alleviation that she knew helped for herself. So laying down in front of the fireplace and feeling that heat was like a soothing
right.
act for her. And again, like that one example in there is so powerful because it's like, okay, so the anxiety manifested as a heaviness feeling. And the important thing, I'm going to keep saying the important thing because there's like 100, is, knowing that no matter how your anxiety manifests, it's all okay. And it might not, people think anxiety is like, your quintessential panic attack, like, curling up in a ball, hyperventilating. And that is a symptom, but it also manifests in fatigue, in memory loss, in irritability, in that heaviness feeling, in overwhelm, in forgetfulness. Like there's so many different ways that it can show up. And people think, oh, I don't have anxiety because I don't hyperventilate in a corner. Well, you probably do, and it's just showing up for you a little bit differently. And so that heaviness was a great example of how it can show up differently for people. And now I've gone on a little bit of a tangent, and I forgot what question I was answering because that's how
No, you're fine. You're just so passionate. I love it. It was just more of a statement that just trying to get out of that funk, I guess. I know Miriam and I had posed a couple questions in various caregiver groups. What gives you anxiety? And I know I posed one question as to, do you feel it coming on, or does it kind of slam and hit you all out of the blue? There was different answers to that. So there's a ton of reasons, to give anybody anxiety, but specifically caregivers, right? Miriam, what was one or two things that gave you anxiety?
Ooh, when I had too much on my plate, I was suffering from nausea or even a dry mouth. Like Stephanie said, it can manifest in many ways. And when you have a dry mouth, you won't think of anxiety.
Yep.
So when I felt nauseous, what I did, especially when during cold season, I just went outside in the garden, and then 5 deep breaths, and then I calmed down. And when I was feeling a bit better, then I came back in. So those were the little things. But what I wanted to ask Stephanie is, what are the don'ts when you have a panic attack? What are the don'ts?
That's an awesome question.
That's a very good question.
Yeah, because oftentimes we can actually continue to fuel the experience without knowing that we're doing it. So thank you for asking that. Staying quiet is one of the worst things you can do for yourself. So what I mean by that is when you're starting to feel that panicky feeling, heading into a panic attack, or if one of your symptoms is the racing thoughts, and that I used to call mine, it was a tornado in a cafeteria in my head. There was just noise and chaos, and I couldn't make sense of anything. Because I myself experienced anxiety for about 10 years before I really got a handle on it. I forgot to mention that.
Wow.
So the things not to do are to stay quiet and stay in your head, because the longer that you retreat into yourself without speaking what's going on, the stronger and stronger and stronger that tornado, that panic, however you want to describe it, will become, until it starts to sneak all of those little lies into you that we were talking about. This is going to last forever. Oh my God, I'm not okay. You're not going to get out of this. All those different things.
You know, that's so interesting. I wanted to point that out when you mentioned that the first time, just how your brain even does that. Like it almost, it's like it attacks you, right?
Yeah.
Like one of those, I found myself having anxiety attacks when my dad passed away suddenly, because of that overwhelming automatic sense of loss.
Wow.
And, you know, having my anxiety, it would tell me your mom's next, your brother's next, you're next.
Yeah.
And for the longest, I would just try to brush it to the side. I wouldn't even deal with it because, right, that's not strength. That's showing weakness. Like, we'll push that to the side until I didn't grieve for my dad until, gosh, maybe 5-6 years after his death, because I kept pushing and shoveling my feelings, emotions, anxiety down in the dirt. And it wasn't healthy for me at all to do that.
Yeah.
It just created more anxiety when I think about it.
I'm so happy you just said that, because it does. When we suppress something and it comes up and we're just like, nope, can't, don't wanna, we shove it down into this little box. And so what ends up happening with that little box is that every time you shove stuff in it, you may feel better for the moment, but then when the feeling comes along again and something triggers it, it kicks open that box and everything comes out. And then all you're doing is shoving more. It's getting bigger. It's kicking it over. You're shoving more. It's getting bigger. You're kicking it over until you can barely function.
Okay, that's interesting. But now that you're saying this, Stephanie, how can you prevent anxiety?
Yes. So part of, speaking it and getting out of your mind. So one of the fastest ways to alleviate anxiety is radical honesty and radical action.
Ooh. So I'm writing that down.
Yes. So basically just finding a space, and if no one's around you, then, even journaling or speaking out loud is really powerful if you don't have someone to share with you, share in front of you what's going on. But you have to speak these things, because when you bring them into the light, they lose that power over you. All those times, Ashley, when you were thinking, it's going to be my mom next, me next. Like when you say those out loud, your body and your brain kind of go, okay, I can see where this is a little bit of just like a fear that I have here and not something that has to rule me. Right. And so that radical honesty piece, which one of my favorite, I use the word radical a lot actually in what I teach, because
I love it. I love it.
Thank you. One of my favorite techniques is called radical acceptance. And it's a very, very simple practice. And all you do is you identify what it is that you're feeling, and you say, right now I'm feeling blank. So overwhelmed, scared, anxious, although I'd actually warn you to keep away from using anxious as a describing symptom, because anxiety is actually a collection of other symptoms. Anxiety is an umbrella statement for all of the individual little things that you're feeling when you're in it. And so breaking it down into like, what am I feeling? Like for me, it's racing thoughts and nausea. Nausea is the physical one I get more than anything when I'm dealing with anxiety. So you say, right now I'm feeling racing thoughts, and that's okay. That's the important piece of radical acceptance, is reminding yourself that it's okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's so important. Yeah. It's okay. Yeah. I've been a caregiver for more than 20 years now. Mm-hmm. 20 years ago, what you're saying, share it with people that you're having these attacks or suffering from anxiety, I wouldn't have done it. So I can imagine that caregivers who are listening right now are in that position, that it's very difficult for them to tell their loved ones or family friends that they are suffering from anxiety. Yeah. But it is okay.
It is. And it has to start with you feeling and knowing and understanding that it's okay to feel these things. It doesn't mean anything about you. It doesn't say anything about you. It's a feeling. And you are a human being. And what it comes down to is that as humans, we have the capacity to feel every single emotion on the planet. And the only time that we're conditioned to believe it's not okay is if we've been told that something isn't, or we've been shamed for something in the past. And that's a lot of what fuels these moments.
That's it. The shame, the guilt, for sure. That's a good point right there. You know, you, especially in the caregiver realm, you are supposed to be strong, right? Oh, she's got it. You know, he's got it. Well, those, you know, the strong ones are usually the ones that you really should be checking in on. Because like you know, that visual you gave us a few moments ago, just the whole shoving it in the same box and stuff gets pushed over, you know, it's real, you know, and the strong ones are the ones I say you should check in on.
Yep.
Most.
Absolutely. So, Stephanie, I have so many questions.
I know.
love it. I love it.
So, when is the time to see a doctor?
So, when you say doctor, do you mean like for medication or a therapist or okay?
Yes.
All the above?
All the above? True. So starting to take any kind of medication is an incredibly personal decision. And so I would highly recommend that honestly, I think that every person on the planet should be seeing a therapist because we all have shit to work through. Sorry.
True.
And
Speak your truth. Speak your truth.
And, you know, we all do. However, when you're starting to notice that this is coming up for you, again, the first thing, especially as caregivers, especially for, you know, fiercely independent people, women, whoever, tend to think, oh, no, I got this. Yeah. You don't have to got this. I can get that through to anybody.
Thank you.
You don't have to do it alone. And anxiety is so isolating anyway.
Yes.
Then when we get that fierce independent streak, which I was the queen of, I got this for so much of my life until it almost killed me. I don't want anybody else to get to that point. So when you start to notice, okay, this is coming up for me pretty frequently. This is something that I notice a few times a week, every day, whatever. It's time to call in some reinforcements because you are the support team for the person that you are taking care of, right?
Yes.
You need your own support team in order to be your best for the person that you love and are caring for. You do.
We need an applause button.
Thank you, ladies. I appreciate that.
You know, you cannot. You have to fill your own cup before you pour.
Yes.
Or, you know, one of my favorites, the travel, you know, put your own mask on before you can put the mask on to, you know, whoever's sitting next to you. Exactly. It's so important. Like, you know, no one is going to take care of my husband, Troy, like Ashley does. Ain't nobody going to take care of him like I can. So what's going to happen if I end up in the hospital? Because I done lost my mind, you know.
Exactly. Or you burned yourself out, or like we talked about, there are physical symptoms that come along with anxiety. And if you're ending up with migraines or nausea or, you know, actual physical pain in your body from what's happening, because joint pain and actual physical flare-ups can be spurned by anxiety, you're not going to be the caretaker you want to be to the person that you love.
Yes, that's so true. And I like how you mentioned how anxiety can be isolating and create this loneliness, because caregivers feel that anyways. Yeah. They feel isolated. You can have a robust, strong support system, but there's still this isolating component to caregiving. You know, I was blessed to have a strong support system, but for us, where we were in life when my husband was diagnosed with cancer, we were just newly engaged. So we didn't get to have that, oh, the cute, like, newlywed, we just got engaged party. There was none of that. We had to go to the hospital. We had to get treatments. Even our newlywed, our first 2 years of marriage hasn't been a typical newlywed story. So it creates loneliness because you look at what other people are able to do, which I know you shouldn't compare yourself. That's the first red flag. I know. But sometimes you still do it, and it just makes you feel lonely sometimes, because it's like, oh, well, we didn't get a chance to do that. But I realize we can do other things. It doesn't have to be the typical story, I know when I was asking a couple caregivers how anxiety, comes for them, a lot of people were saying, stolen sleep. Like, I can't sleep very well because either I'm afraid, and it comes from the fear of the unknown, which that's one of my triggers, fear of the unknown. And what can you say to those that, fear of the unknown is causing you to lose sleep? What can you say to that?
Absolutely. So sleep and like anxiety at night is super, super common, because when you're going through the day, you are focused on life, on caregiving, on what it is that you have to do. And so your brain is occupied with something. One of the main reasons that this comes up for so many people at night, in the middle of the night, whatever, is because that's when you actually have the space to process all of the fears that are in your body. And so if you're feeling it at night, it's because it's quieter and there's more space for your brain to be like, hey, we wanted to talk about this during the day, but you were too busy.
Oh, you know what? That's so common. Like, it seems like common sense, but listening to you actually like put it on the table like that, I'm like, oh, that makes total sense, because I'm by myself now. Like, I'm in myself. I have only me and my thoughts at night. So that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. And so I would bring it back to that radical honesty that I was talking about earlier. The thoughts that are unprojected can't take over at night if you've given them some space during the day. And so, it's not going to be something you have to do every day, but this is where having a support system, a friend, a therapist, whatever, that you can speak these fears to is going to make all the difference. And then when they do come up, because they will, we're human, and everyone's like Ashley, you said, that this is a particular trigger for you. Understanding that it's just a thought. It's just a fear, because we tend to give so much, like, as humans, we're always trying to find meaning. And so we give so much meaning to our fears and our thoughts and the things that happen. And we go, man, what does it say about me that this keeps coming up? And that does this mean something bad is going to happen because it's a fear that I keep on having? And so so it's like, what meaning are you trying to apply to it? Remembering that it is just a thought, and then understanding that you actually get to choose a new thought pattern. And so this takes a little while to wrap your mind around it. A lot of the things they talk about, it's not like you can just wake up tomorrow and be like, I got this, we're good. Practice.
Yes. And what about asking for help as a caregiver?
In terms of how to go about doing it, or
to have more time for yourself, just to have some more time to release some stress, or
those thoughts.
Yes. Honestly, I have not been in a situation like this before, so I know I'm kind of speaking a little bit out of turn. But if there is a way for you to, and I know every situation is going to be unique, but bring in a little bit of extra help, an hour every other day, so that you can take that hour back for yourself. Whether there's another caretaker, maybe like a nurse setup or something like that someone can come in. Oftentimes, I'm sure, because this shows up in so many other areas, it can feel very selfish to take that time for yourself. Okay.
But it's so necessary.
But it is so necessary. And it's actually, self-care is the least selfish thing that you can actually do. Because like Ashley and Miriam, you guys were talking about, you have to fill up your cup before you can even give to anyone else, which means that self-care isn't selfish, it's necessary in whatever way that you need it. You have to, you just have to.
Yeah. And like what I tried to speak on, because I have a caregiver support group on Facebook, and, you know, I just tried to speak on treating yourself is not like, oh, I'm going to the spa today, honey, I'll be back. You know, it's doesn't necessarily look like that. Now, am I a fan of massages and pedicures and manicures? Yes. But can I do that weekly, daily? No. You know, self-care can look like, I'm going to pray and meditate for 20 minutes today. I'm going to write my feelings down today. I'm going to go for a walk for 20 to 30 minutes. You know, just, it can start small and build, right? It doesn't have to be extravagant and luxurious. So
Miriam gave a perfect example too, when you talked about that part of your, you know, working around that, those anxiety feelings, and something that brought you joy was going out and getting into the garden, that fresh air, putting yourself outside. Like, you know, we talk about the sexy and not so sexy versions of self-care, but all of them are necessary. So self-care is everything from those pedicure days to getting into your garden to making sure that your bills are paid. Like, that's a form of self-care too, making sure that your life is being taken care of in a way that supports you. And you know what? If you need to bring in some, I mean, even think about it. You can't massage yourself. So when you're going for a massage, you are going to someone else to give that to you. And it gets to be the same thing for if you need a financial manager, if you need to meet with a therapist, if you need, you know, it's all the same thing. We just put different meanings behind it. And that's what holds us back from taking that action.
And that's why self-care isn't cookie cutter. It's different for everybody. Just like anxiety trigger symptoms are not the same for everybody, you know, so makes perfect sense. Something else that I wanted to bring to light, it's also part of the fear of the unknown. But I know there was a couple caregivers that responded to me saying that their anxiety stems from literally not knowing if and when their loved one was going to die.
Yeah.
Could you kind of speak on that?
Absolutely. It's funny how anxiety will take over when we are directly presented with something that we're looking at every single day. Because if you think about it, uncertainty is the human condition. You know, I could get in the car after this and get in an accident, my life would be changed forever, you know? And so putting it into, you know, I say putting it into perspective, but I mean that in like a really loving sort of way, and understanding that, you know, yes, you don't know what's going to happen to your loved one, but we also don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, even if you weren't living a life in which you had to be in this caretaker sort of situation. And knowing that once you can kind of accept, there we go, accept that uncertainty is actually a constant way of living, it kind of takes a little bit away from that overwhelming feeling of the uncertainty in what you're doing.
Yeah, that's true. Now, I did want to go back because a dear friend of mine who is not a caregiver, but her battle with anxiety stems from not only, you know, combating certain feelings, but she was medicated and stopped taking it because of the side effects of the medication, right? Now, I know you're not a doctor, you're not a nurse, you can't prescribe nothing, you can't tell people what to do in that sort of fashion. But what do you say to those people out there that, you know, they realize they need something, but what is out there isn't working? And how do we stay somewhat of a normal, whatever normal may look like for that individual?
Yes, absolutely. And yeah, that definitely does run in for a lot of people, where anxiety medication, while it could be helpful actually causes more problems than it was that you were dealing with in the first place. And medication is not the only route. And I have this conversation a lot because we are very trained in the Western society here to, we're kind of like a medicine first society.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, because that's how our medical system works. That's how everything pretty much is over here. And realizing that there are hundreds of other ways out there to just even medicate your soul, if you want to think about it in that way, and try and staying open to trying other modalities of healing. So I talk about energy healing a lot because I'm a Reiki master and crystal healer. That is a component of healing that most people don't even think about, but it actually alleviates anxiety. Acupuncture is another one. Meditation is another one.
Sage.
Yes.
Sage in this place down there.
Exactly. Cleansing your environment. Starting to make small shifts and changes in your life and in environment is huge, actually. I'm really glad that you said sage so I can think about that, because when your environment is chaos, you are going to be chaos.
That's what I wanted to say.
Yep. Yeah.
Was one of my triggers.
Yes. So when, and for some people, maybe a way to alleviate anxiety is actually by hiring someone to come out every other week and help you clean your house. And, doing something about the space. Sometimes you just have to switch up your environment. So I can imagine with caretaking, there's a lot of, you're kind of in the same place, the same time, and it's a lot of that isolation, but changing up the environment is so powerful, whether it's going out for that walk or going into a different room, using sage to cleanse if you know how. And have used that before, that's a great way to change up the energy of a room. When there's a lot of negativity in a space, and negativity can just be, sometimes it's cluttered energy, sometimes it's because something bad has happened there. Just that sometimes we get into such a negative space, we start projecting that energy out into places.
Yeah, see, that I'm glad you brought that up, because my dad, he was so discerning, and we literally would walk into some place and my mom, brother, and I, and he'd be like, time to go. I'm like, we just got here. I didn't understand that as a little kid, but as I've gotten older, and I feel like I'm a good discerning person, I feel that sometimes I feel like something's off, and I'm like, I don't like it, and I don't know if I should be here, and I'll turn around and walk out. Now, is that to say something bad was going to happen? I don't know, but I wasn't sticking around to figure it out.
Exactly. Not kind of inviting that in for yourself,
Exactly. So, yeah, I'm so glad you touched upon that, because everything that I've been through with my husband and with the Western, how Western medicine deals with, he had cancer, so how they deal with cancer. But then when I was like doing research and, I visited Southeast Asia for about 5 months, and just seeing with my own eyes how they dealt with medicine versus how we do, I'm like, they've got something going on over there that we possibly need. Definitely need. So, but it's just, and there's a stigma with that even too. So again, I know no one here is, medically inclined to give specific advice, but just finding the different ways that ease your anxiety is so important.
Yeah.
And again, that can look different for everybody. When my dad passed, I picked up running.
Mm-hmm.
It was hard, but something about literally my feet and legs hitting that pavement made me like have a clear mind. And there was times when I would just shout. I'm sure people passing me were probably like, what's wrong with that girl? But I would literally just sometimes scream and shout, even though he wasn't physically there. I'm like, Dad, I miss you. Why did you go? And it was just such a freeing experience, to have that thing for me. Marion, what did you find that helps you deal with anxiety?
Stephanie mentioned it before, journaling in the morning and meditation. Meditation in the morning and before I go to bed. I also meditate, and it really calms me. And thankfully, I don't suffer from most of the anxiety symptoms. Thank God for that. But those are the two main things. If I don't do it in the morning or in the evening, it feels like, when you don't brush your teeth. I'm used to it. So if I don't do it, I'm like, I missed something. And, meditation for Ashley is different than meditation for me or meditation for you. As long as it helps you.
Yes.
It's okay. It is okay. So those are the two main things I do every single day. Every single day. I wake up in the morning, I pray first, and then I meditate.
That's
then
amazing.
I take a shower. While having my breakfast, I am journaling for only 3 to 5 minutes.
Yes.
Whatever comes to my mind, I write down. And
that's awesome.
I'm so surprised to see how many great ideas I got from journaling.
It's like a direct sort of channeling for your brain and your intuition to be able to have a path to get things out.
Yeah, and see, Miriam, really got me going back to journaling and just the things that I remember from just growing up through my caregiving journey. And I just get so excited because it was things that I forgot, but because I'm sitting there and giving it the thought, the time, I'm like, oh, and I'm like, Mom, do you remember when we did this with Dad? Or Troy, do you remember that one song we listened to all the time going to treatment, and we had our own concerts, and just like things like that. And it's therapy, really. Journaling is therapy for me.
Yes. And it's so funny because yesterday or the day before yesterday, I did something I learned from Ashley. Ashley, you have to tell what you're doing.
Hey, this is the best self-care tip of the moment. It's hot off the presses. Are you ready, Stephanie?
I'm excited.
Ready? Audience, are you ready? Listen, get in your car, even if you have to sneak, okay? Get in your car, get your playlist ready, and just turn that music all the way up. Have your own session, you're dancing, whatever. Do it for at least 10 minutes. Oh, it's wonderful. Listen, I go from Tupac to Kirk Franklin to Britney Spears. Can't nobody tell me nothing. It's my radio, my time.
Yep.
So
and on top of that, when you're doing that, so scream therapy is so legit. You were mentioning earlier that when you'd run, you would just start to like yell and shout and say these things. Activating your voice is one of the most powerful tools that you have, whether it's speaking your truth, like we talked about with that radical honesty, but sometimes literally getting in your car, putting that music on and screaming at the top of your lungs will be the best feeling thing in your body that you can do for yourself.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
I saw other drivers looking at me at what the hell
what is she doing?
Right?
Yeah. I know when we would be coming back from Troy's appointments and he would be asleep, I would turn on like Cardi B or, Migos or something. I'd just start bopping. He'd wake up. What is this trash you're listening to? Oh, I thought you were asleep. My bad. Go back to sleep. Go back to sleep. This is my time. My time.
That's amazing. I love it.
Yeah. You have to find something, right? Even if it's, like I mentioned before, even if it's just those few minutes, like as long as it's for you.
Yep. And that one in particular taps into so many different things we were talking about, right? Activating your voice, changing up your environment, getting outside, having that private time. That wraps up like 5 things all in one little bow. I love it.
Yeah. I mean, go ahead, Mary.
Yes, owning your 10 minutes, your 15 minutes. It's so important. For instance, if my brother or Martin, my husband, asked me, Miriam, can you help me do this now? And I have scheduled that time for myself. I say, hon, as much as I love you, I can do it now, but I can do it later.
Yes. Yes, that's so much about what you just said is so important. The first, making sure that you are actually scheduling that time for yourself. Because if you wake up and just say, I want to do this today, next thing you know, it's going to be 11 p.m. and you didn't do the thing you said you were going to do for yourself. Yeah. And then on top of that, knowing that, unless it's like a life or death situation, you don't have to do everything in the exact moment that you are requested to, or that it comes to you. Like, it's okay to say, I need 10 minutes. I'd love to help you out with this a little bit later. Let's come back to this in a little while. You're allowed to do that.
I've had to tell myself that so many times. Like, just because I have this grand idea of what I want to do with my day or my week, and something doesn't happen, that's okay. Like, don't make yourself anxious because it didn't happen. Can it happen the next day or the next week? Yes, then it will happen. But just because it didn't happen in your specified time frame, that's okay.
And that really, sorry, Marian, go ahead.
No, I was just repeating her words. That's okay.
That taps into the whole, like, what meaning are you putting onto something that can be so triggering for anxiety? Because when something doesn't get done, a lot of so when I teach on these, I call them bullshit stories. So what are the bullshit stories going on in the back of your mind? They're running the way that you feel and the behaviors that you have. And so one in that particular situation could be, if I don't get everything done that I plan to, it means that, I'm not enough in some way, shape, or form. And the I'm not enough is that bullshit story running in the back of your mind. Wow. And so we attribute these meanings to things that really don't have to have them. And so if you could look in that situation and just say, it's okay that I didn't get everything done because I'm a human, not a machine. And it's fine next Tuesday. You know what I mean?
That's because we want to be perfect.
Perfectionism and that all or nothing thinking is so damaging. And I'm the queen of it. So
you know what? I'm surprised my mom didn't just comment on that one. I am the queen of trying to do too much. I used to call myself that, the queen of doing too much, because that is something I thought I always had to do, be, and that's not the case. You're gonna wear yourself out. Miriam, one thing that you always talk about that Superwoman cape, won't you talk about that? I love it.
I always tell people, Miriam thought she was superhero. And superheroes don't cry. Superheroes don't get tired. Superheroes can handle all of it. Superheroes don't tell that they are, they need help. Superheroes can do everything. And that's one of the reasons I thought I was a superhero. And that was one of the reasons I wasn't asking for help. No, I got it. Don't worry, I got it. No, I got it. Until I burnt out.
Yeah.
It's, that's why Ashley and I are so committed to talk about this, to share our story.
Yeah.
Because burning out, it's not a pretty place.
It's not. And you don't deserve to feel that way at
all.
And Superwoman. So I have a girlfriend in a similar industry to me who teaches on Superwoman syndrome, which is exactly what you're talking about, where, it's about learning to take off that cape because Superwoman syndrome. I love it. I think she's actually working on a book of the same title. So, and it's so important to realize that and it happens a lot. I mean, we are all powerful, independent, strong women. And what comes along with that a lot of times is that when people see that about you from a very young age, they project a lot of things on you for that, which ends up having us growing up and wanting to put this cape on and being everything we were told that we could be. But nobody talks about the self-care and the personal time and the fact that the only reason that anybody gets to reach their full potential is by outsourcing. You're not actually meant to do it all yourself.
Yeah, that's great. That's so true. And my mom did comment. She said, it's great to make a list, but don't be hard on yourself if you don't get it done that day.
Yes.
And she just said, you ladies are awesome.
Aw.
But you know what? I can always count on 2 people to support me outside of Miriam, of course. But listen, I can count on my mom and my husband.
You gotta know who your people are. That's so important.
Hey, Avis. Avis is a fellow caregiver who Miriam and I had the pleasure of meeting with yesterday. This whole conversation has been so powerful, insightful, and truth bombs one after another. Avis, I mean, we all know the struggle of caregiving. Avis is in the trenches still, but the energy we felt, was amazing. So, keep going, keep digging, Avis. You got it. Yeah, I think we touched on everything that
Yeah, absolutely.
most of the caregivers asked about.
Awesome.
The only thing I would like to know, do you have any other tips for our listeners, viewers, that we haven't touched on?
I was actually going to say, can I have like a minute to throw a few of them out? So I'm so glad that you asked.
Yes, please. And I do apologize. We've gone over the 45 minutes, but this conversation has just been so great. I didn't want to say, oh, time's up. So
well, I'd love to be able to leave people with a few tangible things to be able to try, and understanding that, again, we've talked about how everything is so individual. Not all of these will work for you. And so, trying out different things until they do. But, like we talked about, changing up your environment. Another big one is moving your body. So anxiety is energy that is dying to be expressed. And when we spend so much of our time, sitting or not really getting out or not moving, like, I'm not saying you need to go doing a 45-minute strength workout every day, but like activate, going for a small walk, jumping. I bought myself a tiny trampoline and I jump on it 3 times a day for 30 seconds and it just gets the energy moving in my body. So it's something as little as that. The movement will make such a huge difference in how you're feeling inside of your body. Breathing. Miriam, you mentioned this earlier, and I can't believe it took me 46 minutes to come back to it. But breathing is actually at the core, number one thing that you can do to alleviate symptoms in the moment. Tiny crash course. When we restrict our breath, we actually send a signal to the sympathetic nervous system in our body that there's something to be afraid of right now. So, and it kicks off our fight, flight, or freeze response. And one of the fastest ways to like shift that and fast track it in the other direction is by stopping and taking 3 to 5 deep breaths. When you just allow yourself to sit for 15 seconds and do this, you will change the entire way that your body feels. It's crazy. And so I actually have like silent alarms set on my phone that just say breathe in all capital letters 5 times a day. And every time it goes off, I force myself to sit and do my 5 deep breaths and shift the energy in my body. And so breathing, oh my God, breathing, which is why meditation is so powerful, like you mentioned, Miriam. And if you can just take 3 minutes a day to do a meditation, it will totally transform the physical aspect of it as well. I could do 45 minutes just on the physical piece of anxiety. So
Well, that means we're going to invite you back.
I would love that. That would be great. So breathing, moving, changing your environment. If you are actually, this is one that popped into my head earlier that sounds a little funny, but for anyone who deals with panic attacks, throw a couple clementines or oranges in your freezer. It's going to sound so weird. And when you start to feel that the panicky, the hyperventilating, grab one out of the freezer and try to peel it. So this does two things. One, you have to manipulate the fruit in order for it to kind of like thaw enough for you to be able to feel it, which channels the energy down to your hands to do something else and get you a little bit out of your head. And also, as you start to peel, you know, when you peel an orange, like that, you can smell the citrus because it comes out, is a natural calming agent for the brain and body.
Wow.
Who knew?
Wow.
Yep. So it's just, I used to, when I was a high school guidance counselor before I started this business, and I would keep frozen clementines in our office one, so that when my students would come in a panic attack, I'd throw one at them and they'd, you know, work it out when we were in there. So just try it. It sounds a little funky, but try it.
Oh, no, I'm going to use them today. Wow, that's amazing. But I definitely want to give you some space, Stephanie, since we're almost approaching an hour. Please let us know where we can find you. If someone, you know, listening, whatever was said resonates with you, please, I want them to be able to find you. But first, Miriam, I want to give you space so that we allow Stephanie the last bit of speaking moments.
Thank you so much. People can find me via www.miriambaldewijn.com. I have launched my 6-week online program to teach fellow caregivers who are struggling with unwanted feelings, how to revitalize their energy, don't feel guilty anymore when finally putting themselves number one. And my online program is called Caregiver 2.0. Yes, 2.0. Also on my website, you can find anything, and you can schedule a free call with me so we can find out how and if we can work together. Thank you so much, Lee.
Oh, no, my pleasure. And, you know, after you go through your 6-week online program with Miriam, you can always come to me and get Timeless Dream Events to throw that big party for you, you know, graduate from Caregiver 1.0 to Caregiver 2.0. So you can find me at www.timelessdreamevents.com. You can subscribe to the newsletter. I promise not to bug you. You also get a freebie of 10 self-care tips, which is very important, especially if 2020 hasn't taught us anything through now. Self-care is love. Also, for any caregivers or non-caregivers out there listening, I have Valentine's Day self-love, self-care boxes available too, which you can find on the website. I do want to give Stephanie the last bit of time to drop some major today, some things I wrote down that I am going to implement, even though I'm not as anxious as I used to be. You know, life throws you curveballs, and it's always nice to have some things in your back pocket that you can pull out when needed. So Stephanie, please take the stage.
Thank you. I so appreciate it. I love everything that you both have going on. That these are amazing offerings and the way that you serve your community. And I just think it's incredible. So you ladies are amazing. And yeah, I have, oh my God, there's so much more I wish I could have shared today. So I would love to continue this conversation with anyone who wants to reach out. I'm really active on Facebook and Instagram. My name on both is my full name, Stephanie Lora Bearce. Lora is spelled with an L-O-R-A. Most people do the L-A-U-R-A. So I'd love to connect with you on there. I'm always open to messages. I have actually my signature group coaching program is called Make Anxiety Your Bitch. And it is, I love it. It's, oh my God, it's like my baby. It's so much fun. we do some really, really, not only just the tips and things I was able to share today, but go really deep and actually heal the root of where your anxiety comes from. And how to, kind of like rip it out, let it go, and move forward in a stronger, more empowered, healed sort of way. So that the next round actually starts next Thursday, and I'm super excited about it. And yeah, you can find me on my website is www.uplevelingunapologetically.com, which is the name of my podcast, which Ashley is on, and that's coming out in about 3 weeks.
Yay!
I'm so excited.
We had a good talk.
Yeah, we did. It was one of my favorites, and I've had like 30 interviews so far. And Ashley, you stand out like right at the top. It was so great.
Oh, stop it!
I'm not. I don't lie. So
I know you tell your truth and you speak your truth. I love it. When we first met, you're like, listen, this is how it's going to be, and this is how I am. Take it or leave it, basically. And I loved it. We clicked instantly, because that's how I try to live my life. Just live freely, loving yourself. You have to. You only have one to live. One.
Exactly. And yeah, so I would love to connect with any one of you, and I'm hoping to be able to come back and have some more conversations in the future. And and just remember, I really want to leave you guys with that radical acceptance. Right now, I feel blank, and that's okay. If you take nothing else from this, have that be a new mantra for yourself to start to normalize the experience, because you are safe, you are okay, and it cannot beat you.
Perfect.
Love it.
Could you repeat your email one more time? Because I was putting it in the comments.
Yes.
It's upleveling
unapologetically. .com. Actually, I think Harriet's asking for it too. So ETSEALY.com.
Thank you. That helps, because there's a few people asking.
Oh, awesome.
So yeah, definitely want to thank you very much. That helps me, because I was at a loss on how to spell unapologetic.
I know,
I can't even say it. Unapologetic.
it's big words. I picked it, then I was like, that's a lot.
Got it now. We are in there. So I have everyone tuning in. I have listed everybody's email. You can basically find us all over Facebook and Instagram as well.
And Clubhouse.
Yes. Oh, and Clubhouse. I always forget to mention Clubhouse. We need to invite Stephanie into a Clubhouse meeting with the caregivers to speak on anxiety.
I would love that.
We will be in touch on whatever social media you may want to find us on. We are there. We're open to help. Miriam and I always say we are on a mission, and we need to let the world know what caregivers go through. And I just want to thank you so much again. Thank you that you were able to make this happen with us, Stephanie. I really appreciate you. I can't say it enough.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. I'm so happy to have been here, and I hope that there were some things you guys were able to take away. And for all those of you listening, I'm just sending you all so much love. You are the absolute the unsung heroes in so many people's stories. And my heart and love goes out to all of you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. All right. Bye, ladies.
Bye.